You have never met this person before. They walk into the room, and within seconds, before they have said a single word, something happens inside you. A feeling, an impression, a verdict. You like them, or you do not. And the strange thing is you cannot explain why. You just know. Most people assume this is intuition, a gut feeling, something mysterious and unscientific that defies explanation. Science says something very different. What happens in those first few seconds is not mysterious at all. It is one of the most precisely documented processes in the history of social neuroscience. And once you understand how it works, you will never look at a first impression the same way again. In 2006, psychologist Nalini Amity at Tufts University published research that would change the way scientists think about social judgment. She showed participants video clips of strangers. Some clips were 30 seconds long. Some were 10 seconds long. Some were just 2 seconds long. Then she asked participants to rate the strangers on a range of personality traits: warmth, competence, trustworthiness, likability. Here's what she found. The ratings from 2-second clips were almost identical to the ratings from 30-second clips. 2 seconds of exposure produced the same judgment as 30 seconds. She called these thin slices. Your brain needs almost no information to form a complete impression of another person. And that impression, formed in under 2 seconds, is surprisingly accurate. But here is what the neuroscience shows about what is actually happening in those 2 seconds. Your brain is not thinking. It is pattern matching. Deep in the brain beneath conscious awareness, a structure called the amygdala is scanning the incoming person at extraordinary speed. It is not reading their words. It is reading their face, their posture, the way they carry themselves, the micro-expressions that flash across their features in fractions of a second. The amygdala has been doing this for millions of years, long before language existed, long before conscious thought existed. It was a system that told your ancestors whether the person walking toward them was safe or dangerous. And it is still running in your brain right now, every time you meet someone new. In 2014, researchers at Princeton University, led by Alexander Todorov, published studies on what they call trustworthiness judgment. They showed participants' faces for fractions of a second, sometimes as little as 100 milliseconds, 1/10 of a second, and participants could reliably rate the trustworthiness of those faces. Not perfectly, but consistently. Your brain makes a trustworthiness decision in 1/10 of a second, and then here's the part that changes everything. It spends the rest of the interaction looking for evidence to confirm that decision, not to revise it, to confirm it. This is where it gets genuinely uncomfortable, because what your brain is pattern matching against is not the actual person standing in front of you. It is your history. Every person you have ever met, every experience you have ever had, every face that was ever kind to you or cruel to you or frightening to you. Your brain has built a model, a database of faces and the outcomes they led to, and when a new face arrives, it searches that database at extraordinary speed. Does this person remind me of someone safe? Does this face pattern match with trustworthy outcomes from my past? Does something about this person trigger a warning from an experience I may not even consciously remember? The verdict you feel in those first seconds is not about the person in front of you. It is about every person who looked vaguely like them that you have ever encountered. In 2019, researchers at New York University published a study on what they called face stereotyping. They found that the brain automatically and unconsciously assigns personality traits to faces based on their structural features. A face with a naturally downer mouth is judged as untrustworthy even when its owner is completely neutral and expressionless. A face with high cheekbones is judged as more dominant. A face with widely spaced eyes is judged as more approachable. None of these judgments have any reliable connection to the actual personality of the person. They are artifacts of the pattern matching system, shortcuts built over millions of years of evolution, and they still run automatically in every human brain, including yours, without any conscious permission. But here is what the research also shows, and this is the part that most people find hardest to accept. The first impression is almost never fully wrong, not because your brain is reading the person accurately, but because the person is reading your brain accurately. Here is what that means. When you form a first impression, it changes how you behave toward that person. If you decide in the first 2 seconds that someone is warm and trustworthy, you open up, you smile more, you make more eye contact, you lean in slightly, you are more generous with your attention, and that person responds to your warmth. They open up more. They become warmer. They confirm the impression you had of them. If you decide in the first 2 seconds that someone is cold or untrustworthy, you close off. Your body language becomes more guarded. Your responses become shorter. You give them less opportunity to show you who they actually are, and they respond to your guardedness. They become more closed, more defensive. They confirm the impression you had of them. The first impression creates the reality it predicted. Psychologists call this a self-fulfilling prophecy. Your brain decided. Your behavior followed. The other person responded. And now you have evidence. In 2017, researchers studying social cognition found that first impressions are not just formed about the other person. They're formed about you. Within seconds of meeting someone new, your brain is also calculating how that person is perceiving you. Are they judging me positively? Do they find me trustworthy? Are they deciding right now that they like me or they do not? And this calculation, running simultaneously with the calculation about them, affects everything you do in the interaction. If your brain concludes that the other person is forming a positive impression of you, you relax. You become more yourself. You are funnier, warmer, more open. If your brain concludes that the other person is forming a negative impression of you, you tighten. You perform. You try to correct the impression you imagine they have formed. You become less natural, less likable. Two people meeting for the first time are not just forming impressions of each other. They are both simultaneously modeling how the other person is modeling them. And both of those models are affecting both of those behaviors. In real time, simultaneously, you cannot turn off the pattern matching system. It runs too fast, too deep, too far below conscious access. But you can interrupt the confirmation bias that follows it. The moment you notice you have formed a strong first impression, positive or negative, you can ask one question. What would I see if I was wrong? Not to override the impression, not pretend it is not there, just to create a small gap between the verdict and the confirmation seeking that follows it. That gap is where actual seeing happens. That gap is where you stop confirming what you decided in the first 2 seconds and start noticing what is actually there. You have never met this person before. They walk into the room, and within seconds something happens inside you. Now, you know what that something is. It is not intuition. It is not a gut feeling. It is a system built over millions of years scanning a new face against everything your history has ever taught you about people who look like this. It is fast. It is mostly accurate. And it is almost certainly not entirely about them. The most important thing you can do with a first impression is not trust it blindly and not dismiss it either. Hold it lightly. Stay curious. And leave just enough room to be surprised.